After a hot and humid summer, New South Wales is now enduring an extended spell of warm autumn weather, reaching into its second week. One of the main drivers is record high ocean temperatures off the coast, which are nudging 27 degrees Celsius. That's warm enough to trigger a tropical cyclone under the right conditions. Moninia Rohan is a professor of oceanography with the University of New South Wales, and she joins me now live. Moninia, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Good morning. Can you take us through a little bit more and unpack this unseasonably warm weather? What's behind it?
What we're seeing are very warm ocean temperatures that are coming down from Queensland, coming down the east coast of Australia. We identified the very hot water up off Brisbane perhaps in early February, and the temperatures up there were around 28, 29 degrees. And the current that flows down the east coast of Australia is called the East Australian Current. And we're seeing that East Australian Current has been bringing that warm water down further down the coast. It can separate from the coast and sort of form large rotating bodies of water called eddies. And those eddies retain a lot of heat. And what we're seeing right now is a really large eddy and a recirculation feature just to the north of Sydney that has retained massive amounts of heat. And so we're seeing temperatures sort of 3 degrees above average down through the water column, hundreds of metres, down to, say, 400, 500, 600 metres, some of the observations, and up to maybe, 26, 27 degrees below the surface, which is just staggering.
Yeah, right. I mean, these eddies are in isolation. Is it easy to get a true picture of what the average temperature is like on the coast and then, say 100, 200 kilometres out?
We get information from the sea surface temperatures from satellites. So we rely very heavily on satellites to give that surface information. But the satellites can only measure the first few centimetres of the water column. So to actually get below the surface, we need autonomous robots or ships or profiling floats. One of the things we're doing at the moment is trying to work with the fishing community to instrument fishing vessels because they're out there all the time, putting their nets, traps, pots, lines into the ocean to try and, to catch their fish. But if we can get temperature sensors on those lines, it's really very valuable and very important information.
Now, these temperatures in the Tasman Sea are resembling more of those in the tropical Queensland waters, and that means they could theoretically support the formation of a cyclone with the right conditions. Can you explain that?
Tropical cyclones feed off warm ocean temperatures. Not being a meteorologist, I really can't go into the physics of cyclone generation, but when sea surface temperatures are very warm and when you've got very large volumes of heat in the ocean, like we're seeing right now, that heat can feed cyclone generation and then sustain them should they spin up. We're not saying there's going to be cyclones off Sydney. We're just saying the temperatures are quite warm right now.
Yeah, those temperatures, in the past week, the Sydney Wave Buoy run by the Manly Hydraulics Lab has twice registered 26.75 degrees Celsius, even warmer further out. What is the impact of this warmer water doing?
Obviously, the warm water will stress marine organisms, which is disappointing. Off Sydney, we have kelp, large swathes of seagrass and kelp, and they could become stressed. They could actually die. The kelp forms habitat for marine organisms. If the habitat dies, it may not come back. And so the organisms that live in that environment will find themselves without homes. So while we don't have coral off central New South Wales necessarily, we see similar impacts to what you're showing with the coral bleaching and the loss of habitat or the detriment of habitat.
So if these warmer conditions persist, or rather the question is, how long do these warmer systems need to persist in order to see real stresses to the marine life?
It depends on the organism. If they're stuck on the seabed, they can't get away. The conditions don't need to persist so long. If they're fish, for example, they can swim, they can move around, probably they can survive longer durations. What we can see at times is changes in the distribution or the abundance of fish in the ocean, and that could mean they're gone, or it could just mean they've moved. And I'm working closely with my biological colleagues to try and understand these things, understand the distribution and abundance of marine species and how ocean temperatures impact that.
So just finally, Moninia, and rounding out here, what do you hope people in perhaps policy-making areas will do with this information?
That's a really great question. We are struggling to mitigate against the impacts of ocean warming, or the impacts of anthropogenic climate change. The oceans are absorbing excess atmospheric heat. I think everyone should go and get solar panels, stop burning fossil fuels. There's a lot that we can do here at an individual level and then at a government level to mitigate, but also just put the brakes on some of the warming that we're seeing.